The 1980s gave us Star Wars sequels, E.T., and Back to the Future. But beneath the blockbuster glow, hidden treasures quietly flickered in theaters and video stores. They weren't always hits. Some were dismissed, others forgotten. Yet decades later, they endure, timeless, strange, and hauntingly beautiful. Today we're revisiting 15 sci-fi films of the 80s that still hold up, long after the credits rolled. 1. Enemy Mine, 1985. A barren alien world. Ash-colored skies, jagged landscapes torn by storms. Here, two enemies crash land, Davidge, a human pilot, and Jereba, a reptilian alien soldier, both trained to kill one another, both now stranded with no one else to depend on. Enemy Mine, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, begins as a war film among the stars, but transforms into a meditation on survival and kinship. At first, the hostility is raw. They trade insults, they threaten violence. But slowly, starvation, weather, and loneliness strip away prejudice. They need one another, not just to live, but to stay sane. Louis Gossett Jr.'s performance as Jereba is mesmerizing, hidden behind alien prosthetics but radiating warmth and wisdom. Dennis Quaid as Davidge shifts from bitterness to compassion in a way that feels deeply human. What begins as rivalry becomes friendship, and then something larger, an allegory for peace in a universe at war. Upon release, the film struggled. Critics dismissed it as slow, and audiences expecting lasers and dogfights were puzzled by its intimacy. Yet, over time, Enemy Mine gained a following. Its story feels strangely urgent today, in an age when division thrives and the other is so often demonized. This is not just science fiction. It's a parable about empathy, about looking across the line we're told never to cross, and seeing instead a mirror. 2. Lifeforce, 1985. A drifting spaceship, cold and silent, holds a secret. 3 nude, perfectly preserved humanoids, discovered in the tail of Halley's Comet. When they're brought back to Earth, something ancient awakens, something that feeds not on blood, but on life itself. Tobe Hooper, fresh from directing Poltergeist, delivered Lifeforce, a strange, hypnotic fusion of gothic horror and cosmic apocalypse. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Was it vampire folklore set in space? A doomsday thriller with alien seduction at its core? Or just too much madness wrapped in a single reel? But the imagery lingers, London collapsing under an outbreak of drained, zombified bodies. Patrick Stewart, in an early role, possessed by an alien force. And Matilda May, unforgettable as the alien seductress, her presence both terrifying and strangely divine. Lifeforce was too wild for mainstream success, but its ambition was undeniable. It dared to merge hammer horror sensuality with science fiction grandeur. And though its release was mocked, the years have been kinder. Today it stands as a cult masterpiece, flawed but fearless, the kind of film that reminds us sci-fi was once willing to dream dangerously. 3. The Hidden, 1987. A red Ferrari barrels through Los Angeles traffic, bullets spraying from the driver's window. The man behind the wheel is ordinary, quiet. Until yesterday, he was never violent, but now he's unstoppable. The truth, he's not a man anymore, he's a host. His body hijacked by something alien. The Hidden, directed by Jack Shoulder, blends science fiction with crime thriller grit. An FBI agent, played with icy precision by Kyle MacLachlan, hunts the alien parasite moving from one human host to another, leaving destruction in its wake. It's not just about catching a criminal, it's about containing a force that cannot be reasoned with. The brilliance of The Hidden lies in its pace. It never slows down. Explosions, shootouts, car chases. It feels like an 80s action flick on the surface. But underneath, it wrestles with identity, morality, and what it means when violence becomes infectious. Upon release, it was overshadowed by Predator and RoboCop. But in hindsight, The Hidden feels like a precursor to The X-Files and even Men in Black. Its mix of paranoia and spectacle was ahead of its time, cementing its place as one of the most underrated gems of the decade. 4. Space Hunter. Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, 1983. A ruined wasteland stretches into the horizon. Rusting metal towers lean against the sky, while scavengers with glowing eyes roam the sands. Into this chaos arrives Wolf, a rugged drifter for hire, his battered starship creaking with age. His mission? Rescue 3 women abducted by alien slavers. But on this world, survival is worth more than gold. Space Hunter. Adventures in the Forbidden Zone was released in 1983 in the wake of Star Wars mania. Audiences had grown hungry for space operas, and Hollywood rushed to supply them. Shot in 3D, this film promised an immersive spectacle. Yet, what it delivered was stranger. A pulpy, post-apocalyptic fever dream that combines sci-fi with the grit of a Western. Wolf, played by Peter Strauss, isn't the noble hero you'd expect. He's a mercenary, hardened by years of disappointment. His only companion is a sharp-tongued android, whose cynicism mirrors his own. But when he crosses paths with Nikki, a young scavenger played by a teenage Molly Ringwald, his cynicism begins to crack. The unlikely duo push through mutant-infested swamps, desert biker gangs, and deadly traps as they close in on the warlord Overdog. Half human, half machine, and terrifying in his grotesque design. Critics dismissed the film as a low-rent Mad Max in space. The box office was unkind, burying it beneath shinier blockbusters. Yet, time has been generous. Today, Space Hunter feels like a gritty, pulpy comic book brought to life, unapologetically bizarre in its world-building. The production design is inventive, its practical effects delightfully grotesque, and its villain unforgettable. Rewatching it now, you see what it truly is, not a failed Star Wars imitator, but a scrappy, strange cousin of Escape from New York. It's the kind of film where dust, sweat, and desperation hang heavier than the stars above. Forgotten, yes, but still alive with dangerous charm. Fifth Night of the Comet, 1984. A sky lit by neon streaks, people cheering in the streets as a comet passes Earth for the first time in 65 million years. Fireworks in the heavens, joy on the ground, and then silence. When dawn comes, the city is empty. Clothes pile in the streets, dust where people once stood. Humanity, it seems, has vanished. That is the chilling premise of Night of the Comet, a film that hides its sharp edges beneath the glow of campy 80s fun. 2 Valley girls, Regina and Samantha, sisters played by Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney, survived the apocalypse because they were shielded during the comet's passage. What follows is not just survival, but a curious blend of horror, comedy, and sci-fi, wrapped in the pastel aesthetics of shopping malls and arcades. On the surface, it's absurd. Valley girls with machine guns fighting off zombie-like survivors? Scientists in underground bunkers with sinister motives? Yet beneath the camp is something strangely prescient. It captures the paranoia of nuclear annihilation, the loneliness of urban abandonment, and the resilience of youth. Director Tom Eberhardt made something rare, a sci-fi apocalypse with humor, color, and female leads who were far from helpless. Regina is resourceful, Samantha witty. Together they embody a punk survival spirit that feels fresh even today. At the time, critics didn't know what to make of it. Was it a parody, a horror film, a teen adventure? It slipped through the cracks, never quite fitting any box. Yet decades later, its influence can be seen in works like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Zombieland. Night of the Comet isn't just a time capsule of neon fashion and 80s slang. It's a rare post-apocalyptic tale with heart, reminding us that even in the ashes of the world, laughter and sisterhood can endure. Forgotten by many, cherished by cult fans, it still shines with its own comet glow. 6. Outland, 1981. The mining colony on Jupiter's moon. Io hums with ceaseless labor. Men in heavy suits work in the crushing silence of space, their lives owned by the company. Inside the station, tension simmers. Workers are dying. Suicides, they say. But Sheriff William O'Neill doesn't believe the lies. He senses something darker at work. Outland, directed by Peter Hyams, is often called High Noon in Space. The comparison is fitting. Sean Connery plays O'Neill, a weary lawman stationed far from Earth, caught between corporate corruption and the brutal realities of frontier life. when he uncovers a conspiracy involving drug smuggling, worker exploitation, and deliberate cover-ups, he realizes he stands alone. The company has power. The miners want silence. His deputies abandon him, but O'Neill refuses to bow. What follows is not a typical sci-fi spectacle. There are no aliens, no grand starships. Instead, the film uses its futuristic setting as a stage for a classic Western morality play. One man against impossible odds, fighting for justice when everyone else has surrendered. Connery is magnetic. His performance carries the weight of age, disillusionment, and stubborn integrity. He's not James Bond here. He's a tired man who chooses principle over survival. The atmosphere of the film is equally compelling. Industrial sets drip with grime, spacewalk sequences evoke claustrophobic dread, and Jerry Goldsmith's score pulses with tension. Released in 1981, it was overshadowed by Raiders of the Lost Ark and Clash of the Titans. Critics dismissed it as derivative, yet over time, it has been re-evaluated as one of the most grounded sci-fi thrillers of the decade. Outland resonates today because it isn't about futuristic gadgets or alien worlds. It's about corruption, corporate greed, and one man's refusal to be broken. Themes as relevant in the 21st century as they were in 1981. In the silence of space, justice still echoes. 7. Starman, 1984. A flicker of light streaks across the Wisconsin sky. In the quiet of a widow's home, the light takes shape, mimicking her dead husband's face, his voice, his body. To Jenny Hayden, it is a miracle. To the government, it is a threat. John Carpenter, best known for Halloween and The Thing, surprised everyone with Starman. Instead of horror, he delivered tenderness. The alien visitor, played with heartbreaking innocence by Jeff Bridges, is not a conqueror or a monster. He is a traveler stranded on Earth, pursued by paranoid authorities, searching desperately for a way home. Karen Allen's performance as Jenny grounds the story. Still grieving her husband, she is horrified when the alien first assumes his form. Yet slowly, fear gives way to compassion, and compassion blossoms into something deeper. Together, they travel across America, chased by helicopters and agents, discovering not only love, but humanity itself. Jeff Bridges received an Academy Award nomination for his role. His Starman speaks in halting tones, moves with awkward curiosity, yet radiates wonder at the simplest things. A deer revived on the roadside, the glow of traffic lights, the warmth of human touch. It is a performance that elevates the film from science fiction to allegory. At its core, Starman is about connection, about finding love in the unlikeliest places. In 1984, audiences accustomed to Carpenter's darker work were taken aback, and the film underperformed at the box office. But over the years, its reputation has soared. It's now remembered not just as a forgotten sci-fi, but as one of Carpenter's finest achievements. A love story disguised as an alien encounter. It reminds us that sometimes the most alien thing isn't the visitor from the stars, it's our own capacity for grace. 8th Saturn, 3, 1980. Deep in the void, on Saturn's moon, Titan lies a remote research station. Two scientists live in isolation, Adam, played by Kirk Douglas, and Alex, played by Farrah Fawcett. Their solitude is shattered by the arrival of a sinister new commander, Captain Benson, portrayed with icy menace by Harvey Keitel, and the towering experimental robot he brings with him, Hector. On paper, Saturn III promised brilliance. Produced by Stanley Donen, with designs inspired by legendary artist John Barry, it aimed to merge sleek futurism with psychological dread. But behind the scenes, chaos reigned. Barry, originally set to direct, was fired early in production. Creative clashes plagued the shoot, and the final result was a strange, uneasy hybrid of romance, thriller, and horror. Yet, for all its flaws, the film is unforgettable. The sets are claustrophobic, dripping with metallic menace. Hector, the robot, is not a mere machine, but a terrifying reflection of human obsession, programmed with Benson's unstable mind. When it turns violent, the isolation of Saturn's outpost becomes a prison with no escape. The tension between Adam, Alex, and Benson simmers with jealousy, desire, and control, giving the story an undercurrent of erotic unease. Farrah Fawcett, then at the height of her fame, embodies both vulnerability and resilience, trapped in a nightmare where human frailty collides with technological monstrosity. Critics at the time were merciless. They dismissed it as pulp, mocking its melodrama and uneven tone. Audiences stayed away. But through the years, Saturn III has gained cult status. Today it plays less like failed blockbuster and more like a fever dream of late 70s anxieties about technology, sexuality, and isolation. It may not be polished, but it is haunting. A reminder that even imperfect films can leave scars on memory. 9. Altered States, 1980. Darkness. A sensory deprivation tank. A man floats alone, naked, searching for the limits of consciousness. Then comes the vision. Swirling lights, primal screams, the disintegration of self, science, or madness. Ken Russell's Altered States is one of the boldest sci-fi experiments of the decade. Based on Paddy Chayefsky's novel, it tells the story of Dr. Edward Jessup, a scientist obsessed with exploring altered states of mind through hallucinogens and isolation. Played by William Hurt in his film debut, Jessup dives deeper and deeper into his experiments until his body, and perhaps his very DNA, begins to change. The imagery is staggering. Psychedelic sequences plunge viewers into kaleidoscopic nightmares. Religious iconography bleeds into visions of evolution and primal chaos. The boundary between dream and flesh dissolves until Jessup teeters on the edge of becoming something less than human, or perhaps more. Chayefsky, furious at changes to his script, removed his name from the project. Critics were divided, some calling it genius, others in nonsense, but few could deny its audacity. Russell, known for his operatic excess, embraced the surreal, pushing special effects and practical visuals to their limit. What makes Altered States endure is its willingness to ask terrifying questions. How far can science go before it unravels the soul? Is the search for ultimate truth worth the cost of identity itself? For audiences in 1980, it was shocking, confusing, and polarizing. For today's viewers, it is still a visceral ride, as relevant in the age of VR and genetic engineering as it was in the era of psychedelics. Altered States isn't just a film, it's an experience, one that leaves you shaken, disturbed, and strangely enlightened. 10. The Last Starfighter, 1984. A teenager sits in a dusty trailer park, his only escape a glowing arcade cabinet. Each night, Alex Rogan hunches over the Last Starfighter, joystick in hand, chasing high scores while dreaming of a life beyond the desert horizon. Then, one night, he beats the game and discovers it was no game at all. Nick Castle's The Last Starfighter was one of the first films to use CGI for its space battles, replacing models with digital starships. For 1984, it was revolutionary, yet beneath the technical innovation lies a timeless story. The dream of a nobody chosen for greatness. Alex is whisked away from Earth by Centauri, a sly alien recruiter played by Robert Preston with mischievous charm. The arcade machine was a test, a hidden training tool to find pilots for a real interstellar war. Overnight, Alex goes from trailer park obscurity to galactic hero, tasked with defending the universe. It's pure wish fulfillment, but it works because of its heart. Lance Guest plays Alex with earnestness and vulnerability. He doesn't want the burden of saving the galaxy. He just wanted out of small-town monotony. But in that reluctance lies the film's magic. Courage is born, not from desire, but from necessity. Audiences adored The Last Starfighter, but it was quickly overshadowed by bigger hits like Ghostbusters and Gremlins. Over time, however, it became a cult favorite. Its digital effects, once mocked as crude, now feel charmingly bold, a glimpse into the future of cinema. Revisiting it today, the film radiates optimism. It tells every dreamer that even the most ordinary life can hold extraordinary purpose, that sometimes greatness chooses you, not the other way around. 11. Trancers, 1984. The neon glow of Los Angeles flickers. Detective Jack Death, trench coat billowing, hunts through shadowy alleys for his prey. Trancers. Ordinary people turned into murderous puppets by psychic control. But Jack's fight isn't confined to his own time, it stretches across the centuries. Charles Band's Trancers is the kind of scrappy, low-budget sci-fi that could only have thrived in the VHS era. Its premise is gloriously pulpy. Jack, played with gravel-voiced toughness by Tim Thomerson, time travels from a bleak future to 1980s. Los Angeles to stop a criminal mastermind manipulating minds through history. His body doesn't travel, his consciousness does, inhabiting one of his ancestors. The film brims with grit and B-movie charm. Shot on a shoestring budget, it leans on style and charisma rather than spectacle. Helen Hunt, in one of her earliest roles, plays Jack's reluctant ally, adding spark and warmth to the noir-tinged narrative. Critics overlooked it, dismissing it as forgettable pulp. But on home video, Trancers found its audience. It resonated with fans of Blade Runner and The Terminator, blending sci-fi futurism with detective noir attitude. Its success was enough to spawn 5 sequels, cementing it as a cornerstone of cult science fiction. Rewatching it now, Trancers feels like a time capsule. It may not have the budget of its glossier cousins, but it has spirit, an inventive energy that refuses to quit. Jack Death, with his cynical one-liners and relentless pursuit of justice, is the kind of cult hero audiences still love to root for. It's proof that even the smallest productions, when infused with grit and imagination, can leave a mark that lingers long after the neon fades. 12. Explorers, 1985. 3 boys, obsessed with science fiction, dream of traveling to the stars. In their suburban garages, they cobble together parts, junkyard scraps, old televisions, circuits that shouldn't fit. And somehow, impossibly, they build a working spacecraft. Joe Dante's Explorers is a love letter to childhood wonder. It stars Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix in their first film roles, long before either became icons. Together with Jason Presson, they form a trio of dreamers, chasing visions of outer space that come to them in literal dreams. The film glows with imagination. Their ship, nicknamed the Thunder Road, isn't sleek or polished, but a Frankenstein's creation, patched together with grit and heart. When they finally launch into the skies, the exhilaration is palpable, and what they find in the cosmos is not the coldness of space, but the playful absurdity of life beyond Earth. Yet, Explorers was sabotaged by its own studio. Rushed into theaters before Dante could finish editing, it opened the same week as Back to the Future. The result? It was crushed at the box office, vanishing almost instantly. But over the years, its reputation has grown. Fans now see it for what it truly is, a celebration of imagination, a bittersweet reminder of the boundless wonder of childhood. Hawke and Phoenix shine with youthful sincerity, and Dante's playful direction balances humor with awe. Rewatching it as an adult, the film resonates differently. What once felt like fantasy now feels like memory, the spark of being young and believing anything was possible, even building a spaceship from scraps. Explorers remains forgotten by mainstream audiences, but for those who rediscover it, it still feels like a secret map to the stars. 13th Cherry, 1987. The year is 2017. In a neon-lit future where intimacy is commodified, Sam Treadwell lives with Cherry, his perfect companion. She isn't human, she's a Cherry 2000. A domestic android built to love, obey, and never age. But when Cherry malfunctions, Sam refuses to replace her with something newer. He wants her back. Cherry 2000 is part love story, part post-apocalyptic odyssey. To repair Cherry, Sam must venture into the wastelands, dangerous lawless zones outside the control of corporate cities. He hires E. Johnson, a tough-as-nails tracker played by Melanie Griffith, to guide him. Their journey unfolds across desert ruins, neon brothels, and warlord strongholds, echoing the dusty chaos of Mad Max, but with a strange romantic pulse. At its core, the film asks unsettling questions. What is love when machines can replicate it? Is devotion to artificial affection less real than love between humans? Sam's obsession with Cherry borders on tragic, while his growing bond with E. Johnson feels alive, messy, and human. Upon release, the film barely registered. Critics scoffed, dismissing it as pulp. Audiences ignored it. But in the decades since, Cherry 2000 has grown into a cult classic. Its mix of romance, satire, and sci-fi grit feels ahead of its time, foreshadowing debates about AI companionship and human intimacy in the digital age. Today it plays less like a curiosity and more like prophecy, a forgotten 80s relic that now whispers louder than ever about what it means to love in a world where desire can be manufactured. 14. Slipstream, 1989. The wind never stops. It howls across a fractured earth, reshaping valleys, tearing through cities, and dictating the very survival of humanity. In this dystopian future, flight is everything. Roads are gone. The sky is the only highway. Slipstream was an ambitious post-apocalyptic tale directed by Steven Lisberger, the visionary behind Tron. Its cast was remarkable. Mark Hamill as a ruthless law enforcer, Bill Paxton as a cocky smuggler, and Bob Peck as a mysterious fugitive who may not be entirely human. Together, they navigate a ruined world where wind currents, slipstreams, are the lifeblood of civilization. The film's aerial sequences are stunning. Gliders and aircraft swoop through canyon skies, carried by invisible rivers of wind. The world feels both primitive and futuristic, a strange mixture of high technology and decayed civilization. But Slipstream was doomed by financial struggles and poor distribution. Its budget was slashed mid-production, leaving much of its vision unrealized. Released in only a handful of theaters, it disappeared almost instantly. And yet, buried within its uneven narrative lies something haunting. Hamill, fresh off Star Wars, delivers a chilling performance as a hardened officer, far removed from his Luke Skywalker optimism. Paxton infuses the film with energy and charisma, a rogue caught between greed and morality. And Peck's enigmatic fugitive, philosophical, almost Christ-like, lends the story an eerie spiritual weight. Slipstream may be forgotten, but it endures as one of the most fascinating failures of 80s sci-fi, a film that dreamed of the skies even as it fell to Earth. 15. Brainstorm, 1983. A sleek headset, a flash of light. Suddenly, you're not just watching someone else's memory, you're inside it, feeling their joy, their pain, their fear, as if it were your own. This is the premise of Brainstorm, directed by Douglas Trumbull, the special effects pioneer behind 2001, A Space Odyssey. Starring Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood, it tells the story of scientists who develop technology to record and replay human experience. At first, it's a miracle, letting people taste others' emotions, skills, even intimacy. But when the military takes interest, the invention spirals into darker territory. Natalie Wood's tragic death during production cast a long shadow over the film, fueling morbid speculation. Yet her performance remains luminous, tender, fierce, and hauntingly final. Walken, as the lead scientist, conveys both the thrill of discovery and the terror of its consequences. The film's technical ambition was staggering. Trumbull shot certain sequences in a widescreen 70mm format, expanding the frame whenever characters entered the experience recordings. The effect was immersive, years ahead of its time. Though uneven in pacing, Brainstorm endures because of its ideas. It questions the nature of memory, the commercialization of consciousness, and the terrifying temptation of playing God. Its climax, an unforgettable sequence exploring death itself, remains one of the most daring finales in sci-fi history. Forgotten by most, overshadowed by tragedy, Brainstorm remains a gem of speculative cinema, a film that asks, if we could live forever in another's mind, would we want to? The 80s were a golden decade for science fiction, not just for blockbusters, but for the misfits, the flawed, the forgotten, the ambitious experiments that dared to dream differently. Enemy Mine, Cherry 2000, Brainstorm, they may not have conquered the box office, but they endure in memory. Proof that even the overlooked can still shine. Forgotten? Yes, but never gone.